Welcome everyone to our discussion. I really am looking forward to our conversation about mentorship and all things regarding impact surrounding that. I will let you guys kind of kick it off with introductions and share with our audience just a little bit about what you've got going on. Carrie, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to kind of take it off for us?
I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here with you. My name's Kerry Jordan, and I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Supercritical. Supercritical is an advisory firm that works with cannabis, hemp, CBD companies looking to move their brands into new states domestically, and then globally we help connect brands with manufacturers and licensing arrangements. I've been a Newchip mentor for 2 years and have been absolutely delighted by my experience. I've got some great companies that I've worked with and really look forward to sharing with you today some of my insights and experiences from being a mentor. I'm also a mother of 4. I have lots of experience in the nonprofit sector. I've done many services for governance and fundraising, both for those entities focused on financial literacy as well as women's leadership.
Umash, do you want to go second and share a little bit about what you've got going on over there in India?
Oh yeah, sure thing. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sara, for this wonderful opportunity. And it's kind of great to meet the other mentors, Kerry and Brian. So I've been in the Indian startup ecosystem for a little over, close to 15 plus years, and having worn multiple hats from sales, a bit of marketing, strategic partnerships, did a bit of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing too. But startup space is something which I enjoy a lot because I think it gives you the opportunity to kind of wear multiple hats and kind of work with really some interesting people of various backgrounds. I'm actually a newbie. I don't know how long has Brian been in the system, but that way with Newchip, it's been about close to 3 months. And I think Sara and Greg have really welcomed and they've been really very supportive of having me being a part of the mentor ecosystem at Newchip. Have always been a sales guy, but of late, what I've realized is I want to kind of get into this growth mentor and a strategic advisor and partner. So I have a portfolio of startups whom I work with very closely, taking care of their go-to-market, global expansion, strategic partnerships, and I work with a bunch of investors too, which comprise of HNIs, NRIs, and private equities and institutional funds as well. So it's been a roller coaster ride, but yeah, enjoying. Every day is different, every day is challenging, but yeah, you take it as they come. But it's been good so far, I can say.
Brian, what about you? If you could share a little bit about your intro.
Sure. I'm Brian Asingia. I go by my last name Asingia, and probably 3-4 months into Newchip as a mentor. I think Greg and Sara and the whole team have been very supportive, including just the help from the weekly mentorship sessions. A little bit about me, I suppose I'm originally from Uganda in East Africa, and then did pretty much high school, undergrad, and then work experience here in the US. I used to work at the New York Stock Exchange before I started my company, and what we're trying to be is slowly be more of an innovation studio, just working with different companies, both through in an advisory and then long-term, hopefully with sort of access to capital kind of support. I'm currently working on my second book on ethical leadership and inclusive innovation. It's titled Cashless Society. And I'm also just trying to connect more specifically to special purpose vehicle investors so that perhaps as the next chapter of this mentorship program, I can actually start channeling or helping, one company at a time kind of access funding. So that's something that rather than go the traditional route of like, I want to sort of have a fund, I think the SPV process actually allows me to sort of operate in that space on a deal by deal basis, almost in a syndicate kind of capacity. And that's what I'm actively working on right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I'm super excited. I really think this is going to be a great conversation. Just like all of you touched, we've got not only diversity of time zone, but diversity of thought as well. And I specifically nominated all of you guys for this conversation because you guys represent different levels of where you are in your mentorship and how you are engaging in those conversations. And I don't think we've actually asked mentors, at least in this specific way, how they feel about mentorship. So I would love to flip the script and turn it back to you guys about just your thoughts. What do you think the impact of mentors really means? I know it's a heavy question, but Brian, do you want to start us off about what you think the impact of mentors means to you?
Yeah, I think for me, because I was an entrepreneur, I still am an entrepreneur, and I have had some terrible mentorship experiences in some programs. I think mentorship for me is a way to get it right. It's a way to try to be that, I wouldn't say perfect mentor, but useful mentor to other people. And in general, I think finding the right mentor is often like a very difficult process because it has to do with chemistry, it has to do with goals alignment. But I think that with what's been going on with Newchip as an experience, as a process, from the way the mentors are onboarded and sort of assigned to different teams, that for me, it's been like a great experience. And often I'm paired with the right teams that I actually have like a desire to help and want to work with them and continue to see them grow, and vice versa. And so it's been very useful to just start off on the right foot. And then as mentor and mentee, kind of constantly find ways we can improve that relationship, often based on their needs. And I think that's just only going to continue to get better because now I'm at a stage 3 months, 4 months later, where I'm able to see, oh, this worked for this particular mentee. How do I sort of test that out with another mentee? And I'm beginning to see some kind of patterns on best practices as well, in terms of just letting them drive the conversation of what they need and what they need help with, and then I can kind of jump in and helping us, in any capacity, whether it's through a warm referral, actually advising on how to update the pitch deck, or those use cases vary depending on where the mentee is on their journey, and that's been like a good kind of lesson to learn up front to just be there for them and be available as much as I can, and have them trust that they can reach out to me when they have questions or concerns, some urgent, some long-term, and I kind of like the development of that relationship.
Yeah, no, I really like what you said there. I mean, I think that is definitely a key takeaway, that mentors bring this element of safe space with our founders, and they're able to open this dialogue that a lot of times other members of Newchip, but just even outside of Newchip, maybe they're not able to have those discussions. Carrie, a little bit about the impact of mentors and your thoughts.
For me, it's been an amazingly enriching experience. At Newchip, I've had 5 mentees, and outside of Newchip, about 7 others. So I've had a lot of different experiences and relationships. And I think for mentors and mentees, the real benefit of it is to give and get inspiration. I have these conversations, we set them up on a bi-weekly basis, and it really is a way to connect, to support, and to enrich each other's lives. A lot of time you hear the phrase financial runway, but you don't hear so much about emotional runway of founders. And I think having a mentor that you can trust and that has your back and is supporting you really helps extend that emotional runway. Because for anyone that has started a company, it can be incredibly overwhelming. And some days it can be really just paralyzing because you have so many decisions to make, you have so many responsibilities, and you need to take care of a million things outside of your business. And so having that mentor there to really guide you and help you is essential. And it comes back to the mentors as well. For me, the companies with whom I've worked I'm so proud of them. They've accomplished a lot. They've persevered. They have unbelievable determination. And it's really, really a rewarding experience.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. You're right. A lot of times it is that emotional runway. Oftentimes I think we forget. Why I love that you share that is because a lot of times we have mentors who are founders or previous founders, and I think they understand that emotional runway better than say mentors that are just working for other companies or they're entrepreneurs, because that grit and commitment to the entrepreneurial journey is something totally different. So I love that you shared the emotional runway. And then Umesh, what is your thoughts about impact on mentorship?
It's been a great experience, and of course, it's a different experience altogether, because I think I work with a bunch of accelerators and incubators. Newchip is one of them. I'm also associated with Seed Stars, which is Geneva-based. I'm also associated with NASSCOM 10,000 Startups, which is India-based. But I think each of them have a different system, thought process, and the beliefs and the mission and vision is very different. But I think that way, Newchip is, I feel it's a lot more structured. And of course, each one, as I mentioned, they have a different structure. The set of mentees or the startups who get shortlisted and come on board is kind of very different. But again, you become the extended arm, or it could be in some cases, or another friend, or probably as a fallback option, where they kind of check with you for situations or times when they kind of get stuck. But I think, you have to make yourself available there, when they need you the most. And, always, it's also always kind of good to play more like a good cop and a bad cop with the founder and the co-founder, because, that kind of actually helps them think am I going the right way? Is it working out for me? Not. And, they kind of, always do that pulse check, I think, which actually helps. But I think, so far I've been paired with about 3 startups through Newchip. It's been a great learning. It's a varied mix of, people who come from different walks of life, be it from a technology standpoint, or be it from, the entire ethos of the startup, how they built it. It's kind of very enriching, and I think it's been a great experience so far. And outside of Newchip, I also have about close to 4 or 5 startups who are mentees to me. But all in all, I think I'm able to kind of enrich my experience and my profile is what I feel. I think you also play a very important role, Sara. I think as a catalyst, because it's more of a matchmaking kind of a thingy, right? I mean, while you get so many applications, it's not an easy job. I can put myself, and I've gone through that, where I've been a jury as well, shortlisting startups. It's not an easy task, but I mean, you would want to be fair. You don't know whether you're trying to be partial. You don't know, but it's actually, I think as a catalyst, you also play a very important role, is what I feel, of trying to, match. What is it for Umeysh? She might be below average or a mediocre person. Kerry, somebody who's very experienced. I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation. So then the matchmaking actually happens. I think that's where the mentor and the mentee pairing plays a very important role. I think you guys play a critical or a most integral part of it, is what I feel.
Well, thank you for sharing that. No, I appreciate it. And I love the word catalyst. So you're absolutely right. I couldn't do it without you guys and the likes of you guys. So I do thank you for that. Okay, Umash, because I came to you last, I'm going to kick it off with you so that you have things to add and Kerry and Brian hasn't said everything. And this is more India specific and the India ecosystem specific, with the different economy, the society, and culture. It's very different from places like the US and the Western Hemisphere. Entrepreneurs in India have a very different experience than many across the world. I'd love just your, insight of what you think founders want and a mentor within the Indian ecosystem, or if what does it mean to be a mentor to Indian startups?
In the Indian startup ecosystem, I think India in itself as a startup ecosystem, or as a country, it's a different beast altogether. I think there are a couple of things, if I have to kind of use this as a word cloud, or, tags, which kind of hashtags, which comes to my mind. Like India as a country is kind of mixed and varied with a lot of, could be a lot of experience and, emotions and things like that. It's a very unorganized sector. When you take certain industries and verticals, it's a very, very unorganized sector, which becomes a huge opportunity for most of the startups. Could be young, mid-range. And I don't know if you guys read the latest news. The place which I am in, which is actually south of India, Bangalore, was actually it's home for unicorns. Now it looks like India has taken over globally to having had the maximum number of unicorns, which we're going to be probably seeing. I mean, it's the number. It's on a surge, and it's going to continue. It looks like it. So that's where I think a lot of these investors are eyeing and keeping a close track and all that. I think that is where some of them are while they're very focused and very laser focused, and they kind of literally slog it off of trying to make the startup a success. But when you're very limited within the four walls, it's always kind of good to go out, and that's where a mentor plays a very, very important role of trying to give them what is the perspective as to from an outside world, because the world out there is kind of pretty cutthroat, and it's kind of it can be harsh. As long as you have the right set of people, the team and all that, it'll be good. But I think as a mentor, you also become a part of the core team, wearing multiple hats. You kind of handhold, guide them, and kind of lead them in the direction, and they have to kind of believe you. And sometimes as mentors also, there are situations where it kind of goes wrong, but again, you kind of look at how do you basically work around a situation and kind of do that. I think India as a country certainly needs a lot of mentors, and I've seen that change. In fact, it's only about 3 or 4 years back where I've actively taken up as a mentor. But I think I've seen a lot of people, being mentors who for over a decade. I was always trying to, imagine myself, when will I ever get to kind of put myself in their shoes? But I think, it has kind of picked up. There is an opportunity. There is a market for it where mentors play that super critical role is what we have seen as a pattern or a trend has kind of changed in India.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. And you're definitely right. I think we've all kind of been reading about it in our, networks as well. Like India is having a critical moment with startups. I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it's only going to get bigger. So you're absolutely right. I saw Brian nodding his head during some of the stuff that you said. And I want to also tailor this question to you, Brian. You work with startups in Africa and the African hemisphere. And I'd love your thoughts of just what you're seeing with startups and what you feel like the startups coming out of Africa believe to be mentorship and what they're looking for there.
What I've seen from a lot of the mentees so far, a lot of the ventures coming out of Africa is they actually already have a clear mindset of what they want to achieve. And they're just looking for a partner to help them get there. And so it's actually been really liberating on one hand to feel like I don't have to do a lot of over-explaining or over-education on how big the idea could be. Like they already know this could be a big idea. They already know the market they're going after, both on the continent and also globally, and have clear examples of companies either in the US or in Asia that have that are playing in the similar spaces. One quick example I could give is this travel company, Getaway to Africa, that's actually trying to sort of reimagine the tourism ecosystem and how booking and trip planning can work to Africa through a local lens. And it's just something that I'm very passionate about as well. I think there's, when you think about travel and experiences, there's just a lot of cultural misrepresentation that happens. And so to be able to just tap into local communities to power that service experience is just something that I know, like this particular person working on that idea is so passionate about. They're literally, traveling across Africa, immersing themselves into the communities and really developing local knowledge and expertise from areas that they may not necessarily be from. But I think that's kind of the African way of doing business, which is like make those relationships, make sure you understand that local context, and that will by far outpace any amount of money you raise, because ultimately it's those relationships that really get to stay with you and help your business thrive. So it's just been a blessing to kind of like work with people that actually understand the continent, where I don't have to go like, whoa, like that may be the wrong way to do it. It's like, I feel like they're doing the right things with what they have. And now the challenge is more about how do we get you more knowledge? How do we get you more funding? How do we get you more, especially on the technology question? Some teams tend to be really good at technology, but maybe they're missing on the branding and sort of networking side of things. Other teams really have a good sort of strategy, but maybe they're looking for that technical expertise to help them know the feasibility of certain ideas. So it's been interesting to just engage them at different stages based on where they are. But I think overall, most of them are aware of the challenges they're tackling, which tend to be big problems from education to service delivery, financial access. And I think those are just going to continue to grow, both as businesses, but also as a reflection of the amount of work they're putting in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm going to take a moment to just love on Away with Africa. A phenomenal founder, great time to come in and be a part of the Newchip cohort. It's exploding in terms of what we're seeing with travel, but definitely, what's going on in different regions of the world with travel. So yes, I'm very thrilled that we've been able to have you be a mentor to them, because I know they've shared what a great light you've been for them. And you're right. It does help when we're able to pair those mentors and founders that already have some valuable insight. Just like you are very well acquainted with the Africa landscape. So it was great to be able to see that synergy and pairing work out in a good way. But yes, absolutely true. And then Carrie, same question to you, but I pose with, what are you seeing domestically in terms of what founders are wanting out of a mentor or mentorship? But if you've got, some global insight, feel free to also share that.
Mm-hmm. My experience has been that mentees want mentors to be the voice of reality, to give honest feedback and clear-cut guidance on how to grow the business. I think that for me specifically, because I have 30 years of experience in capital markets and capital formation, a lot of times the conversations lean towards, how do I raise money? How do I manage my cap structure? How do I manage my valuation? And a lot of that conversation can be difficult for a founder to hear, because he or she thinks, well, I am the most innovative product. I am the most amazing service. Nobody can compete with me, but that's not true. We all know that. So part of the job of the mentor is to give solid guidance, evidence backed as to what's real and what's not real. I would say the most frequent conversation that I have with mentees is around valuation. Mm-hmm. And to me, at a pre-seed or seed level investment, the valuation is going to be what the founder and the investor agree it's going to be. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn out exercise. And I know a lot of people really have significant anxiety around valuation and not wanting to screw it up. But at the early stages, you want to find the ideal investor, the investor that's going to be there with you for the long term and continue to support you financially as well as strategically. So that's probably the biggest conversation. And the overarching theme, again, reflecting on my earlier comments, is that they want a support partner. They want someone that understands what they're trying to accomplish and can help give actionable feedback to achieve those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. A lot of times what mentors serve as, somebody actually told me, I feel like I'm the father figure of the startup. And I tend to push back a little bit. Of course, you guys, take on different roles as mentors, but I definitely think you're kind of the coach for these startups and these founders, right? And what does a coach do? They're involved in strategies and defense mechanisms, but they're also, the hype person for this startup and advocating for them in some ways. At the same time, sharing that tough love aspect of what being a mentor really is, right? When founders come to you with, I'm the next Amazon and I have $1 trillion idea, that's when we have to be able to show the tough love aspect and poke some holes and have those conversations. So you're absolutely right. Startups are really looking for mentors that are able to nurture them, but also give it back right at the same time. So I totally agree with you. I would love to know, given just the variety of experience, geography, and career growth and whatnot, what makes your ideal founder to work with? If you've got like top 3 traits that you want to share with us, this is the type of founder you feel excited and invigorated to work with. Brian, I'll give it to you to start us off.
Yeah, I'll be really quick, and I've been lucky to actually see this in majority of the founders I'm working with. I would say definitely a self-starter, like somebody that just if they don't understand something, they're comfortable asking, they're comfortable to say, hey, can we talk tomorrow? Can we reschedule? Can just being proactive and really taking their work seriously. That just goes a long way, because things happen. We may get a little busy. We might miss an appointment here and there. But if we can all keep trying to be in touch with each other, that to me makes a whole lot of difference. The second is really just a willingness to learn. And I would say maybe the last is decisiveness, because it can get overwhelming when you're getting all kinds of information. And ultimately, it's up to you as the mentee to decide what's best for your company. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not good enough to say, well, I already know this, I already know this. I'm always curious, well, what are you doing with all that knowledge that you have, right? So how do you act on the information that you're getting? And I think people that just keep acting and testing, or even if people lack that, I try to encourage it to say, hey, we don't have to know all the answers today. Why don't you test that out for 2-3 weeks and let's see how that works out? And I, people that are more open to that, it just kind of helps you keep moving forward, because that's the overall goal, as opposed to staying in some kind of stalemate of just discussing ideas. So I think a lot of the mentees have been sort of proactive and are always willing to test something out, knowing that, it's business. You don't have to have all the answers. The customers sometimes can tell you whether you're right or wrong. And I've kind of liked that mindset from all of them.
Fantastic. I totally agree. Umesh, what about you? What are your, top 3 ideal traits that you love in founders that excites you to become their mentor?
I think I like the way Brian articulated it. Now I'm able to kind of understand and connect the dots as to, he's an author and, he's had a fantastic track record. I think, it's kind of pretty evident. If you ask me, there are no 3 or 10 or 30 traits, but I think it differs on a case-to-case basis. But I think, as again, going back to the points or the skill sets or the traits which Brian mentioned, absolutely. The openness, the transparency, you should also be ready to kind of take a risk, and, you should also be ready to kind of, accept the failure, because it doesn't mean that just because a mentor comes on board, he's not like a magician who will be able to kind of change the game for you overnight, right? I mean, there are changes, there are cases, there are chances that, somewhere something might go wrong and you might tend to fail. But I mean, you should have that kind of courage or probably energy or the positive attitude to kind of, work things, let's say something goes wrong, you should be able to kind of start off from scratch. Let's do it. I mean, as a team effort, if you're able to kind of have that kind of an attitude, I think that makes a huge difference. Of course, the whole intent is to kind of, work things around and kind of, have an upward growth, organic traction, trajectory, all those kind of things. But it's not necessary, it's a bed of roses kind of a case all the time, right? Anything, anytime can actually happen, especially that way. India as a market is very unpredictable with the weather and the situation. So I think we've kind of gotten used to it. But I think, having gone through a failure and sharing it to the world, it's a big deal is what I feel. So I think if you have that somewhere, you try to give it your 200% best and kind of put the best foot forward of trying to make things actually happen. Traits kind of it depends on the situation. I mean, there's no set kind of a trait, because it would differ from a young entrepreneur to a women entrepreneur to, to a male entrepreneur. I'm not trying to be biased, but I'm just the mindset, the experience and the situations differ on a case-to-case basis. But as long as you have the wavelength frequency meeting and matching with the mentor and the mentee, the startup team. I think you can always work it around. I mean, any situation can actually happen anytime. Yeah, that's what it is. In fact, I want to say, tsunami can actually happen, or anything can actually happen anytime, but you should be able to kind of be ready to kind of face it and see how you can actually face it and, work things around, is what I feel. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And great metaphor and reference to the tsunami. I feel like that should be a shirt of its own. Carrie, kind of wrapping this question up for us, what is your top 3 dream wants in a founder when you're mentoring them?
I have 4, and I call them the 4 C's. They are conviction, clarity, compassion, and coachability. And with each of those, I'll expand a little bit. But the first being conviction. I want the founder, the mentee, to have really high conviction around his or her idea and to really deeply believe in what the founder is doing. And that is not to say that they can't pivot or evolve as they move through the process, but they really do have to have high conviction. The second is that they need to have clarity. So to understand fully what they're getting into, what they're going to have to give up in order to be a successful founder, and to also have clarity around when they're going off course, when they need to course correct, when they need to maybe pause and reevaluate, but to always maintain the clarity. The third is compassion for themselves and for others, because we all make mistakes, we all fail, we all can get overwhelmed, and we need to have a lot of compassion for ourselves and for others to stay healthy mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And then the fourth is coachability. So I think, and I always try to practice humility in my life, but I think for a founder, it's really important to be able to take the constructive criticism and feedback from your mentor and to evaluate it, to not take it personally, and to trust and believe that the mentor is trying to coach him or her in the best way possible towards achieving the best outcome for the startup and for the founder.
The startup landscape is ever changing around the world, really. We never know what's going to happen. I know Umash talked a little bit about the tsunami and what's always breaking or building in the startup landscape is kind of up for grabs. What are some of your predictions for startups? Could be in your geography or outside of that as well, but where do you think the expansion around the world is happening in terms of what startups are emerging? What verticals do you think are going to be starting to become the verticals of the future?
I feel like for me, the one area that I've seen, especially specifically to the African market, is really the issue of digital payments or just cross-border payments in general. That's an area that if I was to have an investment fund, if I was to rally capital, that digital payments or DeFi is really what I want to focus on moving forward, or pay extra attention to, because that's still a problem. So all these companies, all these businesses, at the end of the day, it's like, how do you want your customers to pay you? How are you going to collect money? It doesn't matter if you're a hospital, healthcare company, school, like payments and the ability to collect money from your customers is, just an age-old problem. And for Africa, doing that successfully across borders as they create this sort of almost like EU kind of like single market economy called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. To me, that's going to be huge. There's no way of escaping it. I mean, it's an opportunity that's there up for taking. And so companies that can successfully fix that are going to be relevant. And I'll add one other context to that, and this could apply to any sector or any industry, is for me localization. So for example, one other e-commerce company that I'm advising that's right out of Tanzania, they have already identified some of these challenges I just mentioned of saying, we actually, rather than support global payment systems up front, we're going to do the opposite and just actually intentionally support mobile money payment, so, actual our customers can pay us in the local payment solution they already use. And we're going to do that country by country and localize that. Like, that's a winning strategy because you're not introducing friction along culture, along technology, all these other things that might seem seamless in a Western kind of lens or in the US kind of market. But when you're in like emerging market kind of space, people like to just do things the way they're already doing them. So you don't want to create a lot of disruption. And actually embedding within existing ecosystems can be a winning strategy. So I think innovation to me becomes localization and this cashless society kind of concept of like, how do you support capital transfers across different jurisdictions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you're totally right. Sometimes we forget the global nature of the work that startups do, but even, when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's still about, if it's the next 10 people in your neighborhood that you're impacting, those are the startups that are at the grassroots level, seeing the success and really go on. It's really from that small customer segmentation that you become this really big story that then we get to talk about. Like, just like when Airbnb started, it was literally for folks that were couch surfing, and being able, and in their friend network, being able to kind of set up that platform, and then look at where it has now grown to this unicorn status. Who would have thought, right? So you're absolutely right, Brian. I love that insight. Umesh, throwing it back to you about, what are some of the things that you think innovation wise?
I think the world has seen, I don't know whether you call it as a blessing in disguise, but pandemic actually happened to everybody right across the planet. So a lot of changes. And there's work from home. So, because of pandemic, I've been stuck up at home, be it through the first wave, second wave. And by the way, pandemic is here. It's not going to go anywhere. So you'll have to wear mask for the longest time. Could be 1 year, 2 years. And they say, hey, you might have to go back to your offices. You don't know. But a lot of people have started believing or probably seeing this trend of, remote working, remote gigs, and, working like nomadic life has kind of picked up like crazy. And what has actually happened is people are kind of trying to get away from the city. And, interestingly, people are going back to their hometowns, villages, which is tier 2, tier 3 city, especially in India. It's an upward trend. People are trying to say, hey, enough of all this. So I live in the city, which is a concrete jungle. So they would want to probably go away from the city and kind of, just enjoy the nature. And they're realizing so much, because I think that is actually the need of the hour. I mean, it is going back to nature, trying to be in the nature. For all you know, they're ready to kind of take a risk of getting bitten by a snake, because you know why? That is a lot more, experiment. It's a journey. It's an experiment, or it's an experience in itself, which they wouldn't kind of get an opportunity, right? That is just a joke, but I'm trying to say, but it's still fun, or probably a lot more different than being in a very robotic and a monotonous life, which we get to see, and which we've been seeing it for so long. And I think, again, thanks to pandemic, and you kind of start loving your body, yourself. And of course, for this, there are a lot of new innovative creative ideas which has come up. People kind of get to stand and work. Otherwise, if you're just sitting on your chair and working for 10 hours, you become a couch potato, right? You wouldn't want to do that. And a lot of startups have actually kind of come up with innovative things of trying to come with, standing table, sitting, you'll have to experiment a lot of things. So a lot of innovations, be it not just in the medtech space, robotics, IoT, and all of that. But I think, it's all the credit goes to pandemic. Of course, pandemic has its own pros and cons. We've lost a lot of people across the world, but I think and that has kind of changed on a positive note and a negative note. It has had its impact as well. That's the way I look at it. And I think, Brian did touch upon some very interesting points, like in terms of digital payments and, contactless delivery and a whole lot of things. Each of these industries verticals have seen some really upward trends, and some startups have actually taken it off and kind of have ridden the wave, and it has kind of benefited them to a large extent, is what I'm seeing here in India, and of course globally as well. There's one of the startups which I wanted to kind of highlight. So during the pandemic, during the first wave and second wave, it was very difficult to kind of step out. And second wave has kind of, given them an opportunity to kind of really go out, explore, and kind of, take that risk. So there is a startup which is based out of Mumbai. It's called as Wooloo, WOLW. It's Women's Loo. So we are focused towards providing hygiene dignity for women. So that means every washroom is, using the technology, IoT, we kind of just check the stink level indicator and we kind of tell you the wetness of the floor, and it kind of, records all of that, and it's actually through an app. So right now during the pandemic, we're trying to say, hey, you know what, women, you don't have to be stuck at home. You can actually go out probably and use the app and kind of check which is the closest loo through the geotagging which we have. So that way it's making it a lot more interesting. So again, this is one of the best cases, right? Like I'm just imagine women are so careful, so particular, so picky in terms of when it comes to washroom. And they kind of tend to hold and kind of use the clean washroom, which is bad. Holding it in the bladder is very bad, which leads to a lot of UTI cases. So we're trying to solve that as well through this particular platform. It's a femtech startup. And interestingly, we've had a couple of achievements. One of the biggest achievements is we got shortlisted for Shark Tank India, and we're going to be pitching in the live session, which is actually going to be happening in November. And I'm part of the core team as a strategic partner and growth advisor mentor. So it's been an interesting journey. We're looking to raise funds. So any connects from Kerry, Brian, it would be helpful. And trust me, this Wooloo we are actually targeting a global expansion. Africa is one of the top places which we're looking to, because for women or girls, young girls, clean sanitization or this femtech startup actually has a huge, it's a need of the hour is what I would like to say. So that is the point.
No, I love it. What an interesting concept. And I think you're absolutely right. Access to sanitation is something that's a big problem and pain point for a lot of women. I don't even know. I think it's even a problem here. When I'm on a road trip to Dallas, Buc-ee's is the only place that I will stop at, and their whole gas station revelation was that we have clean restrooms. But you're absolutely right. It is a global pain point of just like access to sanitation and proper access to that. Definitely feedback loop is to healthcare. So I love that you shared that. And then Carrie, I think I've ended with you now a couple of times. So I'm going to start my next question with you, but your thoughts on where you see innovation going in the aspect of startups and even like the verticals and whatnot.
I would say that the overarching theme is achieving social equity through connectivity. And that is becoming especially more important today as a lot of investors put on their ESG, SRI, impact investing lens when they're evaluating where to allocate money. And I also see it from the startup side, whether we're talking about ag tech or fintech or insurtech, ways that we can bring products and services to historically underbanked or underrepresented markets. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One would be a ed tech company that I'm working with, where she's trying to change the way that individuals can learn other languages so that we can connect more fully and learn things more easily through experiential learning as opposed to memorization, which historically is how language has been taught. Yeah. Another example is with a fintech company that is bringing easy banking into the cannabis sector, which historically has been all cash transactions, but it's a way to bring everything kind of out into the open in a way that's fully compliant and meets with regulations. And then a third example is a company, a Newchip company I'm working with now, Janelle Beauty, but originally it was founded as a hair care company created for and by women of color. And what they've learned is it's really even broader than that. It's textured hair. And textured hair is found among all races. It's found among all women and men. So as you continue to move on your journey, you learn that you can serve even a larger market than you originally anticipated, which is kind of the great story of a startup, and being flexible and understanding where the needs are and how you can best meet those needs. And technology, of course, is the thread through all of these examples.
And then I think I have one last question. And then Carrie, I'm throwing it back to you, but you guys know I'm a sucker for storytelling and just stories in general. It's always something that we discuss one-on-one. I would love a memory or a story that you can share with us about, one of your successful points while you've been mentoring a startup. It could be a Newchip startup. It could be a startup outside of our Newchip ecosystem, but a moment that you felt like, oh my God, I get it. Now this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'll go right back to Janelle Beauty. So I had an amazing experience with the founder, Anika Janelle Pettiford. She's just all of those 4 C's I talked about, like on steroids. She's amazing. And I am now also on the board of advisors for Janelle Beauty. And we recently have begun conversations to get even wider distribution through a completely different channel from what she had been working on previously, which was mostly e-commerce sales through her site. But now she is expanding into brick and mortar. She's expanding into online shops of nonprofit organization, and lots of really creative, innovative solutions to increase sales, increase revenue, and increase distribution. And last week, when we had this introductory call with a new product partner, it was just a really exhilarating experience to know that you have been part of a journey that's leading to something material and impactful.
Absolutely. I love that story. Thank you, Carrie. And yes, we are always excited when we're able to learn that mentors are now sitting on the role of a board of advisory of a startup that we helped pair with them. Mentors aren't doing this for the equity or this and that. They do it because of the goodness of their heart. And the fact that you've been able to nurture that relationship and add that value to Janelle Beauty is incredible to see. So thank you for sharing that. Umesh, I'm gonna throw it over to you. Just, a story or a tidbit of a moment that you felt like you got it. Like, this is why you're a mentor.
Through Newchip, one is obviously, which I just got connected with one of the women entrepreneurs, and she is kind of really completely taken on, hands-on of trying to drive it all by herself, even though it's more of a family business. But what I like is, the 4 C's, as Kerry mentioned, conviction, clarity, compassion, and, coachability. I think all those things are there. Somewhere there are bits and pieces of it, but I think, 95% to a large extent, I think she's got it. I think it's more, inspiring for me to kind of get back and kind of connect with this woman entrepreneur, because you give any feedback, or if there's anything, I think that kind of a synergy, or, as Brian mentioned, the chemistry is kind of there, where, you always look forward to kind of a great productive conversation. And that's been a great learning. That would be one of the things which I've kind of has observed, or which has actually happened with me.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that we're coming back to Carrie's 4 C's. That might become my new t-shirt as well. It totally makes sense.
For me, it's been the storytelling aspect. I find that most of my mentees are actually interested in what I think, interested in how I would do something, not how the industry would do something. And that's been empowering, because sometimes I'm always like, well, this is the way you could do it. And then I try to hide like how I would want to do it. But they've been very helpful in terms of just nudging me to be like, no, I'm more interested in like, what do you think about it? Like, how would you do it if this was your idea, if this was the situation? And that's sort of like, I call it like a simulated kind of way of looking at all these issues that they're going through, allows me to have my honest opinion and really engage them in why I think a particular way based on my experience. And to kind of wrap it up, I think some of them, I think the biggest value that I offer my mentees right now is that trial by fire experience, and being able to to help them resist some of the intimidation or impersonation sort of fears that often comes when you're building something, when you're moving into a leadership position. As obviously as your company grows, sometimes you often feel like, am I really ready to lead this company? Am I really ready to take on this investor and their concerns? So being able to almost be their advocate and cheerleader to say, you don't have to be intimidated by an investor's questions. You can kind of like flip it back to them and say, well, why do you want to invest in us? As opposed to you always having to validate yourself to an investor, why don't you buy yourself some time and ask them why they're interested in you? And that may give you more insight. So I think that I'm able to give them some kind of soft skills or I call them psychological techniques that can allow them to continue to be comfortable with the idea that they're the right person for the idea, because after all, they're doing it and nobody else is doing it. And so just allowing them to stay in the game, to play the game, and not necessarily be intimidated by a counterparty that obviously is interested in the business, but the business was there before and maybe even after they leave. And so allowing them to continue on that journey with the right tools has really been, to me, one of the best experiences to kind of share those simple things, but that can really allow them to move forward with extra confidence, way more than they had before. And that's been powerful to watch.
Absolutely. No, thank you to each one of you for sharing your stories and your insights. I will give you a second in a minute to sort of share your closing remarks, but I wanted to take this moment to thank each one of you for the breadth of knowledge that you bring to our startups and our founders, but also the fact that you commit your hours and dedicate this time for founders. I mean, I know we've touched on it, but the impact that you leave behind is truly legacy warranting for each one of our founders. And I have said it before, and I'll continue to say it, that we couldn't do what we do here at Newchip without folks like you guys helping us along on this journey. I know I get a lot out of it. I've gotten a lot out of this conversation itself, but importantly, I know our founders get a ton out of this experience with our mentors and the ability to connect with each one of you. So I am so thrilled that we got a chance to chat. I look forward to continuing to grow our mentorship arm here at Newchip. And again, I thank each one of you personally from the bottom of my heart for what you bring to the table. So thank you. Umash, I'll let you share some closing remarks and then we'll go around and we'll close out this amazing conversation. I learned a lot about impact and what mentors are doing, but I also thank you for nerding out with me a little bit about startups and what's going on in the world of startups.
Thank you so much, Sara. Once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was great to be amongst experienced folks like Kerry, Brian, and yourself. It was a great conversation, learned a lot, especially the 4 C's was the takeaway of today's highlight, I would say. And Brian, I like the way he articulated, would love to connect with him on LinkedIn. And I think I'm super active. I keep telling Sara that, I think 24/7, I'm actually there. They should actually hire me as the tech lead or the team lead at LinkedIn 24/7. I also call myself as the power networker. I don't know, I might come across as trying to be like a wannabe, too much of a show-off kind of a person, but I don't know. Somehow I love connecting with people, and that's what is kind of keeping me going. So I'm there on LinkedIn, would love to connect with you. But I think, the takeaway would be, in fact, on Kerry's point, since she is into the cannabis hemp, there are quite a lot of startups which is actually in the Indian region, which is kind of have gotten into this particular space. But of course, across the country, it's not legal. Whichever states, wherever it's legal, people are trying to do some really cool, innovative products, the complete zero waste management hemp products for the world. And that's kind of picking up. But I think it's been a great session. Would love to kind of be a part of it. Sara, please do consider me if there are any sessions like this happening, and would love to connect with Kerry and Brian offline. I think this is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Umash. Yeah, I think we all took a lot of knowledge from Kerry and the 4 C's and just learned a lot about each other and, the many hats that we're wearing. Kerry, how about you?
Yes, thank you so much for including me in this conversation. I've loved it. It's been so informative and really a joy to speak with all of you. And I would say my message to those joining us today, whether you're another mentor, a founder, or an investor, is to keep remembering your why, to know why you're doing this and stay focused on that and keep faith in yourself and in your particular mission.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you, Carrie. Brian, I'm going to throw it back to you as our finale and home stretch for this part.
Thanks for having us, Sara, and it's really been an honor to kind of see, face to face, given the COVID situations we're in, just some of the other mentors from around the world. And I would say, like, for me, the wrap up is that there's a lot of talent out there, and I think Newchip is doing a phenomenal job of helping those talents access opportunity. The part that I will echo, both for myself and other future mentors or people in this ecosystem, is to really treat ideas as give each idea the respect it deserves, because oftentimes we need to be aware of the context within which an idea is being incubated. There's just regions with different needs. There's technologies progressing differently, sometimes due to regulatory challenges. I mean, if you look at what China is undergoing right now, the whole China-US sort of national security sort of policy quagmire, that has implications on innovation and what kind of apps can be distributed in China versus Chinese apps being distributed in the US. And so I think to disregard these socioeconomic factors that tend to be external to the business but directly influence the business, to me is sort of a failed way of deploying capital. And I'm optimistic that I will try to continue to drive a conversation where investors can be a little bit more empathetic and to me, it's more than just numbers. To really find the right ideas, to really support the right ideas and make them succeed. And the more finance and other sort of strategic partners can have that more holistic point of view on innovation, the better we'll all be as a society. So it's really great to be a part of a community that kind of believes that and really makes sure that founders have access to the right mentors and network to meet their different needs beyond just capital.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys for being a part of this dialogue and conversation about what mentorship means to you and the impact of it. I know I have always been a fan of each one of you, but I think we've all become bigger fans of the work you do and just, what you do as a mentor for our founders. It means the world to us as well as the founders. So thank you again. I truly appreciate your time.